Brian Flores, brand new defensive coordinator of the Minnesota Vikings. But what's strange is yesterday we talked about the 3 finalists for the Arizona Cardinals head coaching job. One was Flores, then you had Lou Anarumo from the Cincinnati Bengals and Mike Kafka. So why did Brian Flores say, you know what? I'd rather go be a DC for the Minnesota Vikings and not partake in this search. Did he get the indication, you think? That's impressive. Did he get the
That's impressive.
Did he get the invitation or inclination that it wasn't going to go that way?
Well,
You got the invitation.
I've got a lot of questions. I mean, for starters, like, where's the lawsuit at? Is that still
Haven't heard
pending or
anything
still-
about it.
Well, because like I would think that if you're up for a head coaching job, unless they've given him notice that he's not getting it, but nothing's come out publicly. He hasn't said anything.
My dad.
You'd think that
The turtleneck.
yeah. You'd think that he would want to keep his name in it until Minnesota could figure things out, unless maybe Minnesota said, hey, this DC job's not going to be here for you. And he really doesn't want to go back to Pittsburgh. He wants to at least be a DC, if not be a head coach. So he took what was there. But it is just a bit odd that if he really wanted to be a head coach again, and by the way, he's the most qualified candidate of those 3, right? Kafka and Anarumo have not ever been a head coach before. Flores has a good win-loss record. You know, I don't know if they were hesitant about how he handled things with Tua, and maybe they're concerned about what that would be with Kyler. But, I mean, he to me was the guy that was most deserving or should have been a guy to come in and take over that job. Like, if you want someone to lead with a strong fist, he'd be that guy to do it and try to at least get, Kyler to, not have those outbursts like we saw on the field and conduct himself the way he did.
It might be Flores that wants to avoid that.
Murray?
Yeah, I think so, because if you're in a situation where you come up short as the head coach for a second time,
You're not getting a third.
and it's based off of a quarterback
I saw what
scenario.
you did there, by the way. Come up short, Kyler Murray.
You like
It's messed
that?
up, man.
Did you like that?
It's so disrespectful. It's unbelievable.
No,
you do
what's
that.
disrespectful is you saying that he was sitting on the curb swinging his legs. That junk had me laughing all day yesterday, man. I ain't gonna lie to you.
Do you know how many jokes he has about short people?
What are you talking about?
It's so weird, though.
But what's bad about it is that I got a mental visual of Kyler Murray sitting on the curb swinging his legs.
But he does this with all short people. Like,
It's not. I mean, I don't
okay,
know.
you can't see any other short person joke?
What do you? I mean, these aren't jokes. I've heard that when they used to play hide and seek, Kyler Murray used to take cover behind a shot glass. Again, I don't know. Like, I'm not. This isn't.
That one
I'm just
was a
reporting.
miss. That one was a miss. That was a miss.
I'm just reporting on this.
These are
stuff.
things that he's got in his back pocket. For what reason? I don't know.
Look, I'm just.
I mean, if you would have said one of the cupboards, if you would have said one of the cupboards in the kitchen, he was hiding in one of those, then that would have probably been funny. But I think that Flores. I think Flores puts himself in a position to rebuild what he left or what he once was by being a defensive coordinator. I think he got an opportunity to get back in with a position group. Now you become a defensive coordinator. You show that you can have success with the defense coordinatorship. Then you kind of give it a little bit more time to get away from, because it is still, even though it's not prevalently being spoken about, the lawsuit, it's still kind of probably fresh in the owner's minds. So he's going to, it's interesting, he's still getting the opportunity to be a head coach. That probably says how good he is as a coach on paper. But I also think that you have to take that into consideration, that he would be willing to sue you under circumstances of his own interpretation. And there's a lot that can go into that, right? Like we said earlier about Sean Payton, it's a restricted private area. There are a lot of things that take place at facilities that owners, GMs, coaches, players are privy to And it can't leave that place. Ask, about the emails and with John Gruden and all that, right? Like, sometimes the interactions are what they are. And I would wonder how people are viewing, if you're thinking about hiring Brian Flores, how are you viewing him? How are you looking at that? Because ultimately, I know for me, I'd be sitting there like, hey man, like, we got strictly business with this coach. Like, I'm not having no private conversations or no offline conversations. Nothing is offline, because this is what I know. This is what happened when he was in Miami. This is what I know. And I think that changes the rules of engagement, because you and I both know in football circles, it's very family-oriented. It's very homie-oriented, crony-oriented, whatever, comrade-oriented. It's very much that. So if you don't have that element to just be free and how you speak to somebody, that's kind of – you got to try to figure out how to navigate that.
Yeah, it's interesting because he's kind of like a new age CEO. Like, all these new age CEOs want to have complete transparency with everything because they feel like everything's going to become public at some point. And it's almost how you have to kind of view hiring him. But, it's hard to deny he's not a good coach. They won 5 games his first season. They won 10 and 9 the next 2 seasons in Miami. Now, you might have said, well, he couldn't figure out the quarterback position with how they handle things with Tua, whatever the case may be. Maybe that was one of the reasons he didn't want to, go to Arizona. If he felt like, I don't know if I can win with this guy, and I was already stuck with a quarterback that I didn't like before, I don't want to have to do that again. So why not go to a defense that's got talent in Minnesota, that's got a bunch, some veteran players, some good players that I feel like I can turn this thing around quick and be able to then have my selection of more head coaching opportunities maybe the following year or a couple of years. So maybe that's what he feels like is the better play for him.
Mess around and take it over in Minnesota.
Well, I don't know if he's going to do that. I mean, O'Connell's done a really good job.
He has, but you never know. I mean, they had a good year this year. I mean,
yeah, but their defense was brutal.
Defense was bad.
And he also is looking at it like it can't get any worse, right?
Yeah.
Like any little improvement, I've got that on my resume.
By the way, if he's just middle of the pack defensively next year, it's a significant upgrade over where they were this past year. But no matter who takes over the job in Arizona, as we were live here from Arizona, no A.J. Green, calls it a career yesterday. So A.J. Green, underrated career. I mean, especially the first part of his, first
7 straight Pro Bowls.
Yeah. But one season he was under 1,000 yards receiving, and it was because he missed the final 6 games of the year. Right. He tore his hamstring, and then they just put him on IR the last game.
He actually had that season. He had the most receiving yards per game. Yeah. Even though he didn't get 1,000, and in 10 games he almost had 1,000. So it was. He had a great career.
Is he a Hall of Famer?
I mean, that's what everyone always wants to ask right away.
I don't think so.
I think it's hard. Even though the way he conducted himself, I mean, man, he was, for a period of time, like he was one of the best, most dominant.
If you go back, so Josh Gordon always got talked about, like top receiver. If you go back to that
1 season.
Well, but like when people talk about his great season, you look at Josh Gordon, that like he kept getting chance after chance after chance.
Who was his OC in Cleveland that year?
Was it Shanahan? Was it? Wow. Interesting. But if you go back to that year, I would look at it and go, A.J. Green, pretty similar numbers-wise, yet his seasons never really got talked about in the same way that other wide receivers did. Is it because he wasn't a diva?
It's like Mike Evans. Mike Evans has 9 straight seasons of receiving over 1,000 yards. That's all he does. He walks in the NFL every year 1,000 yards receiving.
And there's like no
we never talk about him like that.
It's weird, man. So you got to be a diva in order to really get some recognition.
It could be partially the product that the game is now. Where people just feel like it's easier to accumulate stats. Yeah, you almost is he number 1? Yeah, then or is he number 2? He should have 1,000 yards receiving.